And he went to Hadar Torah Seder with the Bachram studying Hadar Torah. Then he came to the dorm. Before he went to the dorm, he came to the Russian tree, the Seder they have a few doors away from the dorm. Then he went to the dorm, and then the Rebbe went home to do his own Seder. So, like I said, the Rebbe would go downstairs, stand near the staircase, and give a bracha. Thank you. But besides that, there were certain years, and I don't know if every year, where the Rebbe would also go upstairs. Even once went into Mrs. Gansberg's apartment, and he went upstairs on the second floor, and went upstairs on the third floor, throughout the rooms. That's the time when he told Mrs. Gansberg the famous words, "Thank you for raising my daughters," and then I would give a bracha. So this is the last time that I ever visited. The Rebbe gave a bracha, and later they asked the Rebbe to edit it. So they wrote the bracha down, and the Rebbe went over it and made sure that it's accurate. And this bracha is printed in the Kutus Sichos. It's printed in one of the volumes of the Kutus Sichos, but it's in Yiddish. So I'm going to read it now and translate as we go along. Started off by saying a kosher Freilich and Pesach. You all know what that means, to have a kosher and a happy Pesach. The reason why we say kosher, why don't we say have a kosher Simchas Torah, have a kosher Purim, have a kosher Chanukah? So obviously, because the halachas of kashrus related to Pesach are so much more complicated, so much more detailed than any other yontif, and that's why he has special bracha that Hashem should give us His divine assistance that we should succeed in having a kosher Pesach. No matter how careful you are, you still need Hashem's assistance. There was a story with the Chassidus of Tzemach Tzedek that he was very, very careful with Pesach, extremely careful. As much as you see and you've heard, he was beyond. And the custom is that comes to Pesach, people usually like to eat in their own homes. So he wouldn't even go to the Rebbe's sort of farbrengen or table because he wanted to be careful not to touch any food that's not from his own house. And in his own house, he used to prepare water before Pesach in a barrel, and he only drank water from that water that was prepared before Pesach. Finally, at the end of Pesach, the last day, Achar Pesach, he came to the Tzemach Tzedek. So the Tzemach Tzedek said to him, by the way, there's a piece of bread in the bottom of your barrel. Imagine a piece of bread at the bottom of the barrel means that all the water has chametz in it. He was devastated. He went back home to see if it's real. It wasn't a metaphor. There was actually a piece of bread at the bottom of the barrel. It was very broken. So he went back to the Tzemach Tzedek and he asked him 3 questions. The Rebbe told the story. One question is, why do I deserve that? I was so careful with Pesach, why should this happen to me? Another question was, now that it happened, I need the Rebbe to give me a path how I can do tshuva for eating chametz on Pesach. And the third question was, if the Rebbe knew about it, why did he wait for the 8th day? Why didn't he tell me right away? 3 good questions. So the question, why it happened to me, the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek answered him, because you have to trust the Eibishter a little bit also. In other words, obviously, he overstepped his boundaries. He went overboard in how much he was being careful, to the point that he was forgetting that you do what you can do, and then you have to trust the Eibishter that he will give you his divine assistance that you'll succeed. I guess the fact that he even stopped coming to the Tzemach Tzedek because he was afraid showed that he didn't know where to draw the line. I don't know what he told him to do tshuva, but he asked him the question, so why didn't the Rebbe tell me in the beginning of Yom Tov? Why now? So the Rebbe said, because now you came to me, so I see what your needs are, and that's what I told you now. Which is, by the way, we see the advantage of being physically in a place where the Rebbe's presence is found. Okay, getting back, that was a detour. Akosha Freilich on Pesach. Of course, the second thing is we need a bracha to be, should be a happy Pesach. That's every yontiv. There's a mitzvah to be b'simcha, and so too Pesach. Chag Pesach is Reish L'Regolim. It's the head of all the Yom Tovim. This is the beginning, and that's how the year begins. This is considered the first of Yom Tov in the sequence of Yom Tovim. Then what is the Aschala von alle Yom Tovim, und in Yonim de Kol HaShana Kula. All the holidays throughout the year, Pesach is considered the first, the leader, and then comes Shavuos and Sukkot, and then comes Simchas Torah and Chanukah and Purim back to Pesach. So therefore, being that is the first, so the kashrus of this yontiv and the freilichkeit, the happiness of this Chag Pesach, not only should you have it on Pesach, but this should have influence for the rest of the year. It should also be kosher and freilich. This should also have hashpah on your relatives, on your families that are in other places, that they should also be in the same spirit. Being that Chag Pesach is man chereseinu, which means the time of our freedom, everyone should be freed and liberated from all those things that they need to be liberated from on a personal level. That year, Pesach was Mitzvah Shabbos. This year, Pesach is Friday night. That year was Shabbos, and right after Shabbos came Pesach. Being that from Pesach Shabbos we're going straight into Pesach, and Shabbos, the difference between Shabbos and Yontiv is Simcha, joy, and Shabbos is Eineg, which means pleasure. So the Rebbe says, therefore, the pleasure that Shabbos provides us with should also be something which will last for the rest of the year. And the Rebbe would conclude with the bracha that all those that need a good shidduch should have that good shidduch. It should be good begashmis, good beruchnias. And next year you should be having the seder in your own home with your own family, and of course also be mekayim the mitzvah of having guests by the table. So, like I said, and I'll mention it again, by the seder, that even though this happened the last time in 1981, but the truth is that there's no doubt that the Rebbe's presence is there. The Rebbe continues to give his bracha. Okay, we're on page 66 now. That's regarding the Shabbos. There's a halacha part of the Shabbos and a little bit more Chassidus part of the Shabbos. So you probably know that the Shabbos has a special name. Recently, we've had Shabbos with special names: Shabbos Zachar, Shabbos Parshas Para, Shabbos Parshas Chodesh, and this Shabbos is called Shabbos HaGodol. It's not extra. This is actually yours. This one here.
Is this online at all?
Is what?
Is this online at all?
It says Malka, so it must be you. Yeah. It's a different Malka.
I know everything is spelled me, but also.
So there are various reasons given why it's called Shabbos HaGodol. The most commonly known reason is because the custom is it's the last Shabbos before Pesach, and on that Shabbos before Pesach, all the Rabbanim in every community, the Rav gets up and he gives a little bit of a summary of the most important laws that are urgent to know about Pesach, preparing everybody once again. And therefore he would talk for much longer than he would usually talk, and they call it Shabbos HaGodol. That's one of the reasons that are given. The Alter Rebbe in his Shulchan Aruch gives another reason. And he said because on this day, there was a Nez Gadol, there was a big miracle. What happened? First of all, just to know the order of things, the day that Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, what day in the week was it?
Sunday.
It's 1 out of 6 days, 7 days. Okay, it's not Sunday, so you have 6 more choices.
Not Shabbos.
5 more choices.
Not Friday.
4 more choices.
Wednesday.
3 more choices.
Thursday.
It was Thursday, right? Didn't went out of Mitzrayim on Thursday. In fact, the Hayom Yom not Hayom Yom, but when we say in davening Hayom Yom Chamishi, and we say chapter Tehillim, in that chapter Tehillim, it alludes to the fact that Yidden went out on the Gulf of Mitzrayim on a Thursday. So Thursday was the 15th of the month, and Shabbos was the 10th day of the month. So another thing that happened on that Shabbos was that Shabbos is the day of passing of Miriam and Aviyah, Moshe Rabbeinu's sister. Even though the day of the month was the 10th of Nissan, but because it was on Shabbos, so to commemorate that every year, the Shabbos before Pesach is a special Shabbos. But still doesn't explain why is it called Shabbos HaGodel. So the Alter Rebbe gives the following reason. It says, because on that Shabbos, there was miracles that happened, but they weren't ordinary miracles, they were big miracles. And that's why it's called Shabbos HaGodel. What are the big miracles? So the Yidden were told that they're going to bring a korban on Pesach. And when you bring a korban, you have to inspect the animal before, because if an animal has a blemish, it's not qualified to be brought as a korban. So you have to inspect it 4 days before. So the Yidden were told to take the sheep, tie it to their bed, and they should keep it there, make sure it doesn't have any blemishes, doesn't get anything goes wrong with it. In the meantime, the Egyptians saw that they have a sheep tied to the bed. Again, we said last time, the sheep was the Avodah Zarah. They worshipped the sheep. And to them, it was very offensive that you're tying the sheep to the bed. So they asked them, why are you doing this? So the Yidden said, because in 4 days from now, it's going to be the 15th of the month, Hashem will take us out of Mitzrayim. We're going to bring a korban Pesach. And on that night, all the firstborn are going to get killed. So when the firstborn heard that, they came to Paro, they organized themselves. This is probably the first demonstration mentioned in the Torah. They made a demonstration, and they were called the League of Firstborn, I guess. They came to Paro and said, you have to let Yidden out of Mitzrayim. Their lives aren't, they knew everything Moshe said actually happened. That means all the firstborn are going to get killed. Paro refused. They refused, and a war broke out between the firstborn and the Egyptians. And a lot of them were killed then. And that's why we celebrate the Shabbos. This happened the Shabbos before Pesach. That's why it's called Shabbos HaGodel. So it still doesn't explain it. It's a miracle. The answer is, obviously, there's something about this miracle that makes it unique and makes it deserve the title HaGodel. Before explaining it, I want to add another thing. This is also the reason why this Shabbos, we have the custom that we read the Haggadah. You probably know that on this Shabbos, after Mincha, we take a Haggadah and we read from Avodah Mayinu until after the Dayenus. Why? So the Alter Rebbe gives this reason and says because there was this big miracle that happened on that Shabbos before Pesach, and these miracles were in a way the beginning of the miracles of Exodus. Actually, leaving Mitzrayim was on the 15th of Nissan, but in a certain sense, it already began the Shabbos before with these big miracles. This was the breaking point, and therefore, to commemorate that, at the beginning of the miracles began Shabbos before Yetzias Mitzrayim, we read the Haggadah. In davening, we allude to this. If you want to take a look at the next page, page 67. We have the 26 things where we thank Hashem. One of them reads, L'makim Mitzrayim Evchareim, he who smote Egypt through its firstborn. We also say Kilelum Chazdei. Most people will understand that to mean that one of the 10 plagues, and the last one, the final one, was the firstborn. But that's not what the Mefarshim say. The Mefarshim say it's referring to this miracle, that Hashem was able to attack Mitzrayim and destroy Mitzrayim through its own firstborn. So the question is, why is this miracle so unique? And the general answer is as follows. We repeated this numerous times, that the issue when Yidden went out of Mitzrayim was not about one nation and another nation, somebody is being held captive or nations being held captive, and this nation that's holding us captive has to be defeated so we can go free. It was a spiritual war. It was a war between Kedusha and Klippa. The fact that the Yidden went on Mitzrayim means that Kedusha defeated Klippa. Kedusha was victorious over Klippa. So Klippa is something which has no Kedusha to it, and Kedusha is stronger and overpowers it. Normally we see the opposite. We see how Klippa overpowers Kedusha. In fact, the mere fact that the Jewish people were in Golus for 210 years meant that the Kedusha was held captive and held as a slave by Klippa. So now Kedusha came out stronger and Hashem's presence was revealed openly. This miracle goes a step further. When we say that the Egyptians were the ones who fought Mitzrayim, and they were the ones who sort of broke the ice and began the process of Geula, of Exodus, who did it? The Egyptians did it. The firstborn of the Egyptians, they were the ones to attack and defeat the Egyptians. In other words, here we see that Klippa itself is destroying Klippa, which indicates that even Klippa comes from Hashem. Klippa also has godliness in it. And now Klippa itself sort of declares that Klippa can no longer exist. That's what we saw happening. And in fact, who was it? It was the firstborn. Remember we said yesterday that the reason why this was the final blow was because the firstborn means the essence. They embody the essence of the Klippa. Just like physically, firstborn means the first, the beginning. So too, spiritually, this is the essence of the Klippa. It's like the Rebbe says about a person that when a baby is born, being that this is the beginning, this is the source, so in a sense, that's the time in his life, in the younger age, where the essence of the neshama is more open. That's why children have more natural emunah. Or the same thing on a daily basis. When we wake up in the morning, when we say Moeda'ani, that's when the yechida, the essence of the neshama, is more open. Why? Because in a sense, this is the essence of my existence today. I woke up. The waking up is the beginning. Everything else are the details that follow. This is the birth on a daily basis. Then there's the birth on an entire life basis. So the Bechorim, which are the first that were born, they embody the essence of the Klippa, and they go ahead and they're fighting and destroying Klippa. So that was a much greater miracle than this, which means that the greatest miracle is when Klippa itself denounces Klippa. And that's going to happen when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes, what does it say in Aleinu Shabeach? That the non-Jewish nations will say that we no longer believe in the Avodah Zarah. They're going to break their idols, they're going to destroy it. And as we say in Al-Kei Nekava, Aleinu Shabeach, every day that when Mashiach comes, they're all going to destroy their idols and they'll all recognize Hashem. So when it comes from that world, from that Klippa itself recognizes Hashem, that's the highest level of godliness being revealed in this world. That even in the other nations and even in the place where there was Klippa before, godliness will be revealed. The Klippa part will be removed and rejected, and the godliness in it will come out in the open. It's interesting when the war took place in Iraq. So you know that when the war took place in Iraq, you know that this was the time that the Rebbe said, even though on the surface it appears to be a war, so that's not a pleasant thing, and the Jewish people were being threatened, but in reality, what was going on was that this is a message from Hashem, Higiyaz Mangolaschem, the time of your redemption has arrived. That's how the Rebbe defined that time. So one of the things the Rebbe said was, there's a pasuk that says that just like we saw miracles when we went out of Egypt, we're going to see miracles when Mashiach comes as well. But the term in the pasuk is just like, ki yimei, just like you saw then, that's how you'll see it now. Which teaches us not only that just like there were miracles then, there will also be miracles now, but there'll be a similarity in the miracles. So the Rebbe drew the parallel that then what we saw was that there was Egypt, which was a wicked nation, a nation that had its suffering as slaves, and they tortured us for so many years. And Hashem made a miracle that Mitzrayim itself destroyed Mitzrayim. And that's what's happening now. Now means 1990 and 91. that Saddam Hussein was a person who wanted to destroy Klal Yisrael, just like Haman. His dream was, and he wasn't hiding it, he said it openly, is to send missiles to Yerushalayim, Tel Aviv, and Rahman Islam destroy Yidden. He had the same dreams as Hitler. And what happened was that his plans, of course, fell through, but not only fell through, but the nations of the world, they were the ones who defeated him, and they were the ones who humiliated him, and they were the ones eventually who executed him. Which means it's not that only that Kedusha defeated Klippa, which is really what happened, but what came out was that Klippa itself destroyed Klippa. Even though we don't really understand these things, but I'd like to add a little salt and pepper. And maybe we can say the same about today, that there's a big Klippa that's doing things today that were unimaginable. Nobody thought this would be. Especially, as you probably know, every day that goes by, they find out more and more how the horrors and the atrocities that he did with this war. But who are the ones that are attacking him, and who's the one that are defeating him, and eventually they'll probably, defeat him completely, are the nations of the world. And perhaps this is also part of the process of the Makim Mitzrayim B'Chareim happening before the complete Geula. So what it shows is, we always say in davening the words Einod Muvada. There's nothing else besides Hashem. And in fact, this is one of the cornerstones of Chassidus. The whole Chassidus is based on these words. And you'll know today, Hashem Hu Elokim, Ein Od Muvada. Nothing else exists besides Him. When we say nothing else, it means not even Klippa exists without Him. Even Klippa only exists because of Hashem. Even Klippa has to have it in a spark of Kedusha. And when this happens, that Klippa denounces evil, that is the ultimate revelation of godliness in this world. And that's what happened in Mitzrayim, and that's what's happening now. And we should see it full circle all the way. Okay? Any questions? Yeah.
But couldn't you say this could apply at any time period? If there's an evil regime or whatever leadership that people, nations of the world aren't okay with and fight against. I don't know. It's why was the Mashiach
No, there's two things, I guess. There's two things. One thing is when two nations are fighting, and what else is new? If you would say that Russia and Ukraine have a war, what else is new? It's been going on since the world is standing, that nations are having wars. But up until recent times, nations had wars, and that was the norm. That was acceptable. Whoever's stronger is the one that defeats the other. The fact that all the nations in the world come together, which is the way it'll be when Mashiach comes, and basically, there's an international law. We don't fight. We don't use weapons. We don't kill. We have to work things out politically and negotiate things, and not using these methods which were used for thousands of years in the world. That's something which is new. So the ones who are enforcing it right now, if there would be, let's say, a big tzaddik would come and say, everybody go attack Russia, okay, or fight this war, that means it's coming from Kedusha. But the fact that it's coming from the nations of the world, that they're all united in the sense that no country is able, should go out and use weapons against another country, means that we're witnessing something similar. When Mashiach comes, of course it'll be that way. All the nations of the world, all the nations, without exception, will agree to put down all their weapons. But the fact that it's happening now in a way that all the nations are united, I'm talking about the civilized countries are united in this way, to me, it appears that this is somewhat of a manifestation of what happened then, the Makim Mitzrayim B'Chareim. That's why I said it's my salt and my pepper. It's not something it's not a sikha or anything, I'm just adding it. But it's based on what the Rebbe said then about Iraq was a similar situation. Okay. We're moving to page 69. Now we'll talk a little bit of Chassidus about the 4 cups of wine. It's had the Seder has different customs. Of course, the mitzvah, which is midoraisa, the most strict mitzvah that is absolutely necessary for everybody to do, is to eat a kazayis matzah. And that's the main mitzvah where you go out and you try to encourage and inspire people to eat matzah for Pesach. We give out the shmura matzah, but there are also many other customs by the Seder. And this is also a mitzvah, it's an obligation from the Rabbanan. On Shabbos, on Yontif, is an obligation that you must drink a cup of wine. Friday night, Shabbos day, Yontif night, and Yontif day. And that's the way it is with every single Yontif. But here there's an exception, not only 1 cup of wine, but 4 cups of wine. What's the reason for that? The reason is because when Hashem speaks about Geula, there are 4 terms that are used. Let's turn the page for a second. It's all on one page here, the next page, 70. And it's underlined, so you don't have to strain your eyes too much. You'll find it. On top of the page, it says, "Vayitzeis yeschem," I will bring you out. Then another one is underlined, "V'ga'alti yeschem," I will redeem you. And then it says, "Lakachti yeschem," I will take you. And I forgot to underline one word. It's underlined in the English, wasn't underlined in the Hebrew. I forgot intentionally. That's a contradiction of terms. Okay. V'hitzalti. The third line from the top. V'hitzalti means I will save you. So I'll bring you, I will save you, I'll redeem you, I will take you. And then at the end it says the 5th term, V'hevesi, I will bring you. So Hevesi means I will bring you into the land of Israel. But the other 4 are I will take you out of Mitzrayim, and 4 terms are used. Corresponding to the 4 terms, that's why we drink 4 cups of wine. There's another interpretation that it corresponds to the 4 different exiles. We were in exile in Babylon, Bavel. We were in exile in the times of Purim, which is Paras, Persia. We were in exile in the times of Hanukkah, which is Yavan, the Greeks. And now we're in exile from the Romans, because that exile never ended. That's the 4th one, Edom. And being that there are 4 exiles, we also bring 4 cups of wine, because we're not just celebrating Yetzias Mitzrayim of Pesach, but we're going to celebrate the ultimate redemption from all 4 exiles. Then we know that there are the 4 questions that you ask. So this is the custom at every Seder. Of course, people have not only the privilege, but also are encouraged to ask as many questions as they want. Children are encouraged to ask questions. We do everything we can to sort of provoke them that they should ask questions. But the traditional thing is 4 questions. Again, number 4. Then we have the 4 sons. In the Chumash, it says that you should tell your children what this is all about. And in the Chumash, it uses 4 different ways of explaining to the children, the way to talk to the children, what it's all about. So the Gemara says the reason why it uses 4 different ways of explaining to the children, because it's addressing 4 kinds of children. There's a Chacham, a child that's wise. There's a Rasha, a child that's at the other end of the spectrum. Then there's a child that is somewhere in the middle, which is a child that is tam, not too smart, and he doesn't know how to even explain his questions. And the 4th category is a child that doesn't even ask questions, just sits there and observes, but has no intelligence, not even intelligence enough to ask questions, not motivated enough to ask questions. So there are 4 children, there are 4 kashas, there are 4 gullus, and there are 4 cups of wine. What is this all about? So we know that in Torah, and especially when it's explained in Chassidus, everything, really everything is broken up into 4 parts, because everything comes from Hashem. Hashem's name has 4 letters, Yud, K, Vav, K. So therefore, everything is structured with 4. I know you're going to say, I thought everything was structured in 10. That's also true. I thought everything is structured in 3. Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes. That's also true. So obviously, it's a certain angle how we look at things that is 4. And we find this in many, many areas. That there are, first of all, the 4 elements, Atzilus, Briya, Yitzir, Asiya. And then we know that the world was created with 4 elements. And there's a famous letter from the Rebbe wrote to a scientist who write that now we know about many more elements. And the Rebbe writes in that letter that really there is no difference of opinion about the facts. The only difference of opinion is that scientists will consider many more elements, as these are the basic elements. And according to the Torah, the basic elements are earth, air, fire, and water. And all the other elements, even though they're there, but they're really offshoots or extension or branches of these four elements. So according to Torah, it's four elements, which is the basic elements of everything in creation. And not only Begashmis, also Baruchnis, because you remember from Tanya that the soul has made up of four elements. There's earth, air, fire, and water in the soul. And different characteristics. Some of them are earth, and some of them are fire, and some of them are water, and some of them are wind, air. So it's true that everything is four, but what does that mean? How does it all come together? And then we find an interesting thing that there are 4 cups of wine, but there's also a 5th cup. What's the 5th cup? The Chassidus of Eliyahu Hanavi. This 5th cup, there are different customs, but the most accepted custom is we don't drink from it. We just pour the cup by benching time, and it stands there. And this cup is in honor of Eliyahu Hanavi. Yeah.
I saw that they sell like a big cup of wine, like this. I'm not kidding, like living like this.
Oh yeah, they're massive.
I saw it like in Canada. Sorry.
Most people think that if you want to honor Eliyahu Hanavi, it has to be a big cup.
I'm just saying, if Eliyahu comes to the Seder as he should be doing, is he drinking every single cup of wine?
Yeah,
Oh my
he
God.
takes a sip. He takes a sip.
Like that's a lot.
And Rabbi, why can drink
Why what?
Why can drink? Like I remember last year, like my mom like can drink.
Why can we drink?
No,
Right, you don't drink. It's not meant for us to drink. It's meant for Eliyahu Hanavi. It's being poured in his honor.
If Eliyahu can drink it.
Why you poured it back into the bottle?
I'll follow him wherever he goes.
We can put again in the bottom, you know, like
After you pour it back into the bottle. You don't pour it out. Yeah. In fact, by the Rebbe's Seder, even though this is something which should be people taking care of technical things, it was a custom of the Rebbe himself to pour the wine of Eliyahu back into the bottle. In fact, it was very interesting. I had the merit to actually watch it and witness it. The Rebbe would do it in a very interesting way. And no matter how much we watched and try to get the pattern, we couldn't happen because he always did it differently. But basically, in general, when you drink from wine and now you want to pour it back to the bottle, you're not supposed to pour back the wine you drank from. You don't know that? Okay, let me say it again. If you have a cup of wine and you drink from that wine, half of the cup is left. Could you just pour it back into the bottle? Why not? Being that you drank from it, in language of halakha, it's called pogum. There's a certain defect in the wine and you can't make kiddush on it. So what you do is you take fresh wine, pour it into the cup, so now all the wine is fresh, and then you pour it back to the bottle. Again, you do pour it back to the bottle, but first you pour new wine in a little bit into this, and then you pour this back into the bottle.
So why? Like if you can do it from the cup, so why you can put it in the bottle again?
Because once you pour in new wine, it's no longer pogum. Now all the wine is fresh wine. What?
It's like already blessed and the wine become blessed, like the wine became blessed.
Now, being with that, in other words, when you drink wine, there's certain halachas that the wine has to be appropriate for kiddush. If someone drank from wine, it's already not as pure, so to speak. If I pour in new wine, now all the wine is transformed into a new fresh wine as a result. So I can pour it back into the bottle and use it for kiddush.
Is that why you have to put a cork in the bottle when you're saying kiddush?
What?
Why do you have to put like a cork or something to cover the bottle when you're saying kiddush?
There was once a very great sage whose name was Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. He lived about 700 years ago. And even though he was in that time, but the stories about him were very similar to Baal Shem Tov stories. He was a big makubal. He knew a big mystical tzaddik. And he performed unbelievable, miraculous things. And he wrote a sefer called Sefer Chassidim. And in the sefer, he writes different things that to do, to way to act. Now, a lot of the things are only meant for people that are on a higher level, they follow Kabbalah, but some of those things, at least in Chabad, maybe in other communities that have other things, but in Chabad, there's some of the customs that we took on. And one of those customs are that when you make Kiddush, the bottle should always be covered. You don't have to put it back in, but as long as it's covered. In other words, custom is not to polish your shoes before you go on a trip. Another one of his customs are that a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law shouldn't have the same name. So if a shidduch comes up and your name is the same as this boy's mother, it doesn't mean you have to give up on your whole idea. But if it works out, then what you do is you add a name. The girl who's getting married usually is the one that adds the name. Or the boy who's getting married adds the name if it's the same, like his future mother-in-law. These are called the custom, the Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. So actually, these are all things that have mystical meaning. It's very deep stuff. In fact, the Baal Shem Tov once said about some of the things that he wrote, that it's shocking, it's unbelievable that a human being of flesh and blood was able to comprehend and perceive such deep things, even though to us it looks like a simple custom. So one of those customs are that when you make Kiddush, the bottle should always be covered. So I can't give you the reason, I can just tell you the source, the fact.
The bottle should what?
Covered. Yeah.
Only that.
No, when you make Kiddush.
Only kiddush?
Yeah. During the time you make Kiddush, should be covered. Yeah.
So like wine, grape juice, whatever you want to finish on, the bottle should be closed.
Right. It should also be covered during the meal for another reason, because things tend to fall down. And if it falls down and it's not covered, you'll be full of wine or grape juice or apple juice or orange juice. So you cover it. But this is not a practical thing. This is a spiritual thing.
Only wine if it's kibosh.
Whatever you're making Kiddush on. Yeah.
Rabbi Majeski,
Yeah.
what about for cups for Pesach? Should we drink just like red wine or whatever more? Just like 4 cups.
Yeah, the main thing is it should be 4 cups of wine. I think we have to also remember that when you drink 1 cup of wine, not always it goes to the head, it goes to the stomach. 4 cups of wine, some people unfortunately don't feel good and they end up not eating the matzah, not drinking the wine. So therefore, it is not a bad idea to use grape juice. Some people use grape juice, they mix in a little bit of wine, so there's also a little bit of wine. But you have to, and also the cup shouldn't be like Dvora's cup. It should be a cup that the size is more or less drinkable. Yes.
When I was on the spot, we had a 2 shots here, and there were various cups of wine as well. Is that the same sort of idea?
I can't tell you about the Tu B'Shvat Seder because I know nothing about it. It's a Sephardic custom. It's not a Chabad custom. Lately, in a lot of places, they do it because it's a nice thing to do. It's interesting, but I don't know anything about it. Never read anything on it. I just know that it's done. Yeah. What's what? Right. Why we open the door? To let him in.
He's not just gonna walk into your house. He's a considerate guy.
He's not himself unlimited.
Okay, maybe we'll get there soon. We'll soon talk about Eliyahu Navi if we get there today or tomorrow with Hashem. Let me just explain, what does it mean that there are 4 languages of Geula? So yes, it says 4 words in the Torah, so therefore you have to drink 4 cups of wine. So generally speaking, again, very general because there's so much details to all this. Generally speaking means as follows. This came up before as well in different classes, but now is the time to talk about it because it's Pesach. And that is Most people look at history that something happened, the Jews were in Egypt, then they went out of Egypt, then they went to another country, then they ended up in Babylon, then they went out of Babylon, then they went to Rome, and then they went here, they went there, different, in a sense, almost like disjointed, just different stories of our travels and our adventures of history. But the truth is, everything that happened, especially in terms of Golus and going out of Golus, is one long process. It's not separate, independent, disjointed things. It's a process that began when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, and it'll come to its culmination when Mashiach comes. You remember we spoke about the ladder. Yaakov Avinu had a dream and he saw a ladder. And it says the ladder had 4 rungs. And the 4 rungs also represent these 4 Golusim. The Golus of Babel, the Golus of Persia, the Golus of the Greeks, and the Golus of Edom, of the Romans. So if you think of a ladder, the 4 rungs, they're not separate things. That's how you climb. First you go on one rung, and that allows you to climb to the second rung, and that allows you to get to the 3rd rung, and then finally you can reach the 4th rung. So basically, it's a ladder, and that's what all these things are as well. The fact that we were in Mitzrayim and went out of Mitzrayim, and then we were in Babylon and went out of Babylon, this was like a second stage. We're going through stages of growth, even though it looks like we're going down and things are happening, but in reality, it's constantly growing and developing until we will merit to have the complete Geula. That's going to be the culmination when everything comes to fruition. So when it says in the Torah, it means that there are 4 stages to redemption, 4 aspects to redemption. So on a very large scale, these 4 stages of redemption, how does it express itself? In the 4 different places that we will go out of Golus. When out of Mitzrayim is one stage. When we went out of Babel, rather, is one stage. When we went out of Persia is another stage. Going out of Yaman is a 3rd stage. And going out of Edom, which will be now, is the 4th stage. So just like there are 4 stages in general, we know that the whole Torah is set up in the same structure. Each one in its own also has 4 parts, 4 stages within it. Which means when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, in Mitzrayim itself, there are 4 stages. And that's why Hashem said, V'hitzesi means I took you out of the 1st stage. V'hitzalti, I saved you, means I took you out of the 2nd stage. V'goalti, I redeemed you, means I took you out of the 3rd stage. And v'lokachti means I took you out of the 4th stage. There are different stages in going out of Golus. And by the way, the same was with the 10 Makos. When Hashem brought 10 Makos, oh good, over there it's 10, but the idea is the same. That it's not that he brought one plague and another plague. The first plague weakened Mitzrayim on one level. The second plague weakened Mitzrayim on a deeper level. The third deeper, went from stage to stage until every aspect of Mitzrayim was finally broken and defeated, and then the Yidden were able to go out. So therefore, when it says 4 languages of Geula, it means that there are 4 levels of Golus, and each level that we went out is represented by one of these words. So when we drink the 4 cups of wine, it's also the same thing. 1 cup of wine represents us going out of one stage of Golus, another cup of wine going out of 2nd stage of Golus, and the 3rd is the 3rd stage, and the 4th is the 4th stage. What these specific stages are, of course, is very complicated to go into. But generally speaking, if we say that there are, just like we say there are 4 worlds, that means that everything in the world is made up of these 4 different levels. Tzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. And these are the 4 letters of Hashem's name. And that's why everything that revolves around Pesach, or at least a lot of the things revolving around Pesach, are all structured with the number 4. Because the process of Geula is going out of these different 4 stages. Let's just use as an example what we said before, that there are 4 elements. Just try to imagine that one of the stages is mainly to liberate the fire in me. And one of them is to liberate the water in me. And one is to liberate the earth in me. And one is to liberate the air in me, which means every part of me should be liberated. And being that a person is made up of 4 elements, there are 4 stages of redemption for each one of those 4 parts. And again, like we always talk about Chassidus referring to mitzvahs, it's not just a symbol. When we drink the 4 cups of wine, drinking wine is drawing down godly light and godly energy into the world. And that enables us to go out of those stages of golus. So therefore the wine is 4, and many other things about the Untitled Pesach revolves around 4. You should probably be asking, so why don't we eat 4 matzahs?
We break the third one in half to make 4.
Okay, that's an interesting point, right? Very good. And then to make sure that we don't really think it's 4, so we break the next piece into 5 pieces. So it's again confusing. So again, ultimately, when we're sitting by the Seder and we're drinking the wine and we're saying the Haggadah and we're talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim, again, we're celebrating, of course, celebrating the general exodus of Mitzrayim. And of course, we're celebrating and declaring our faith and Amun and Hashem that soon we'll go out of this golus. But we're also experiencing on a personal level, we're asking Hashem to give us the strength that we could be able to get away from our own personal Mitzrayim, our own personal golus. And being that there are 4 stages that lead up to redemption, so therefore we drink 4 cups of wine, we answer 4 questions, we speak to the 4 children, asking Hashem that He should help us liberate ourselves, free ourselves in all 4 different levels of going out of our personal goals. How many levels are there in the neshama? There's 5. So there's 4 basic levels, which is nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya. And the 5th level is the essence of the neshama. So think of it this way. If I have to free my neshama, my godly soul should be freed from the golus of the animal soul. 1 stage is to free my nefesh. 1 stage is to free my ruach. 1 stage is to free my chaya, neshama. And 1 stage is to free the chaya, the 4th stage of the soul. So we can understand that every part of me should be free. And being that there are 4 parts to the soul, there are 4 parts to the process of redemption. The 5th one always represents the essence, yichida, as the essence of the soul. And that's why the 5th cup of wine also represents Mashiach, it represents Geula. That has to do with Eliyahu Navi going out of Golus. And the pasuk is about going into Eretz Yisrael. So in all of these, by the way, there's 4, but then there's a 5th. And the difference is the 4 represents the general structure of everything, and the 5th is something which is higher than all the details of the 4. Actually, Hashem's name is also the same thing. Hashem's name is 4 letters: Yud, K, Vav, K. What's the 5th in the 4 letters of Hashem's name?
Would the 5th be all the variations of like?
No, the 5th is on top of the Yud, there's a little line. Did anyone ever see the way Yud is written in the Sefer Torah? Let me show you my scribe skills. No pictures, please. So this is the way Yud looks in the Sefer Torah, something like this.
Don't all the letters have that little puppet?
What?
Don't all the letters have that?
Not all the letters have it, no.
But the hay also has, no?
No, some letters have it, true. It's
And
called
the
the,
bub also has.
it's
so then
called
all
the
letters-
kites on the Yud, so that's true, that also has it. This is the Yud, and then on top of the Yud, there's a line, it's called the kites, in different words, the crown. So the 4 letters represent the 10 spheres. And the thing on top, that is the 5th level, and that also represents the crown, Kesef. Yeah.
That's only in Sefer Torah that has the.
Sefer Torah, mezuzah, tefillin, all written like that. Right. It's koitz. It's called a koitz. Koitz really means like really the word is, it literally means a thorn. It means one little stick, a thin little, it's supposed to be a thin little stick. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about is to draw a parallel, basically two things. Where do we see the similarity between going out of Mitzrayim and Mashiach is going to come? In what way is Mashiach's coming different than going out of Mitzrayim? Both are true. In many ways it's similar, in many ways it's different. So there's a list of things. Some of them show you where they're similar, and some of them show you where they're different. And we'll go into the reason why they're different. And then we're supposed to be covering Kriyas Yamsuf. And then we're supposed to be covering Achash Pesach. I think we might make it by Friday, Mirz Hashem. If everybody shows up and we start on time, we should be able to do it. Okay. To be continued.
So